Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our first wine tasting of our spring wine club shipment. We're going to take this opportunity to introduce you to the 6 wines that are going to be in your club pack. We're going to taste through them, talk a little bit about them, and give you an opportunity to become friends with these wines before they ever touch your lips. So here on this call, and we're staying socially distanced, of course. So even though we may be just a few inches apart on your screen, we are, well, on the average, miles apart in real life. So you have Heather, our front of house manager, and she is running all of our great social media programs, including this tasting, live tasting, as well as other live tastings, and you just check it out. Mags, our assistant winemaker. Yeah. Kelby, our winemaker. Terry, our business manager, and the voice and fingers who make everything happen when you call about your order. And Katie, our wine club director. And we're all here and we're going to have a little bit of fun and taste some wines. And by the way, I'm Dave Whiting, founding winemaker and co-owner of Red Newt Cellars. So the first wine we're going to have is the Sawmill Creek Riesling from the South Block. At Sawmill Creek, there's one block of fruit that we've used for a number of years. It's up on the upper part of the farm. And after about the first year that we took wine or grapes from this fruit for wine, from this block for wine, we realized that there was a really distinct separation between this block. The south half, which is only maybe an acre and a half, as it turns out, was planted a little bit differently than the north part. The soils were a little bit different, and also the vines were grafted onto 2 different rootstocks. The one to the south was grafted, I believe, on 3309 rootstock, which is very common here in the Finger Lakes. The north half of the vineyard was grafted onto a Labrusca rootstock. I believe it was Ives or Catawba rootstock, which in the early days was not an uncommon way to address rootstock grafting to get resistance to phylloxera and other things. So the fruit that comes from the 2 halves of these blocks, of this block, is fairly distinctive and lends itself well to kind of a different approach in winemaking. So as we taste through, I think we'll notice that we do handle them quite a bit differently. The South Block, we make in a very dry style. It's dry and lean, a little bit electric, some apple and sort of characters of mineral and slate, and really quite delightful. And a great food wine, and great on its own too. And I have selected a delicious but simple recipe to go with this wine. I'm going to make, I actually have made, but I'm going to tell you how to make a carrot fettuccine. You know, it's made with carrots and eggs and flour, basic fettuccine, and then pairing that with a fairly basic Alfredo sauce. So it's delicate, not too overpowering, and it's going to go beautifully with this wine. So next wine is the Sawmill Creek North Block, the 2014, and that is going to be Megs, our assistant winemaker.
Hello. Yeah, it's kind of fun doing a South Block and a North Block back to back. Stylistically, they could probably not get too much more different than they actually are. South Block is this, really intense, lean, dry, focused Riesling, and the North Block has, I won't tell you how much, but a decent amount of sugar in comparison, with a little bit more ebullient mouthfeel to it, and definitely a little bit younger, obviously, because it's the 14, so it's still maybe still coming into its own a little bit more. The sugar and the acid really help kind of lengthen that life out for it. But I think these styles of wine are really fun to work with as far as making them goes, and also really fun to consume as they progress through the years. I think it's important to note that when we say that a lot of people comment like, oh, I only like dry wine. Well, guess what? I only like balanced wine, and this wine really nails that point. So like I said, I won't tell you the sugar. Try it before you look at the number, and then see what you think with our balance that we achieved with it. Anybody want to talk about what they taste in the 14 North Block?
Ooh, I love this wine. And when you talk about sugar and sweetness, it's just really quenching, but also very rich with these kind of electric kind of combination between ripe raisin and quince, perhaps.
Mm. Yeah, the fruit's quite delicious.
Maybe some
Luscious.
and maybe some. You would be the one to check me on this, Megs. Maybe some mandarin orange gummy bear character.
Oh, yes, I could see that. I could see that. I'm a gummy bear aficionado, in case people were not aware. Uh, so what I decided to pair with this wine is rather than try and focus on the fact that it does have sugar and go to a dessert realm is I really wanted to do like a spicy dish so that the little bit of sweetness that you're going to get from the wine itself kind of plays off the spice of the dish rather than the sweetness of a dish. So there is a red lentil curry coming at you soon.
Sounds great. So next wine is the 2014 Pinot Gris from Creek Vineyard. Kelby's going to talk about that one.
Great, yeah. 2014, beautiful growing season in the Finger Lakes, and the Creek Vineyard is just a beautiful site for us to work with for our Pinot Gris and Gewürztraminer. Really gives us a real richness to the wines, and those are both grapes that like to ripen, but John Santos does an amazing job of delivering even beyond those expectations for us. This 14 Pinot Gris is kind of marked a new step in the style for our Pinot Gris. We've always been trying to make a larger, fuller bodied style of Pinot Gris. We're not trying to make Pinot Grigio, sort of light, simple white wine. We're trying to make something with a little more body, a little more texture to complement what John Santos delivers to the winery. So for this vintage, it was the first vintage that we ever intentionally did a cold soak on the fruit. It came in, we crushed it, cold soaked it overnight to get a little bit more texture. And it gives you, you can kind of see in the glass, it's a little darker than most white wines. It's a little more copper hued when we pressed it off the next morning. When we pressed it off, there is one notable thing that happened. The free run is what ended up making the wine I'm talking about. That's the stuff that just came right out of the press without any pressure applied. The pressings, where there's a little bit more mashing of the skins, those ended up being kept separate to make the wine that Heather will talk about next. For this wine, to kind of complement what a beautiful, full-bodied white wine this is, I've selected a French recipe that's a variation on a Hungarian recipe. So it's a little bit of a mashup of cuisines, but it's a really great pork chop recipe, really quite simple with a beautiful cream sauce and paprika. And it's perfect for this wine and perfect for the spring season because it's still somewhat hearty in food, but it's actually remarkably light and very refreshing and kind of nods towards the warmer days coming up. So I think it's a nice combo with this wine.
Thank you, Kelby. The next wine is the Pinot Gris Vin Gris from that same vintage from Curry Creek, and Heather will talk about that.
So the Vin Gris, of course, is treated differently. This is the pressings from the Curry Creek block in 2014 that go through barrel fermentation and malolactic fermentation, giving it that big, rich creaminess. And then it's aged for several months in the oak, right on the leaves, developing more mouthfeel, more flavor. So this tends to have a bigger palate weight than our other Pinot Gris, and much more significant palate weight than a lot of people expect out of Pinot Gris, which is why I love to champion this wine, because a lot of people kind of look past it. We don't make a lot of it, but if you're a big fan of grilled seafood or even blackened salmon, this is a really great wine for those things. I love it, especially in the springtime, coming into summer, because you're getting a bigger, bolder white wine that kind of bridges that gap between the summer sippers and the bigger, bolder wines that we've been drinking to get through the winter. So it occupies this really great space between March and April and early May, when we're getting ready to fire up the grill, but maybe not able to do it. So sometimes we have to use inside kitchens. And it's a recipe that's versatile. I love it for its mouthfeel, its texture, and the fact that this is going to age quite nicely. So enjoy the Pinot Gris.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. The next wine is our 2017 Glacier Ridge Cabernet Franc. And Terry is going to talk to you about this wine.
Yes, I probably won't say as much as everybody else because I'm one of the members that has the least amount of wine knowledge, although I do like wine. So
Only
the
like
2017, so the Cab Franc in the Finger Lakes region it's probably one of my favorite reds. It has a classic, I don't know, it's a classic Finger Lakes Cab Franc nose. And this being a 2017, its tannins are still a little sharp. But you just can't beat that cranberry cherry nose and the full mouthfeel of a Cab Franc. Yeah, the tannins are still a bit young. So I paired a dish that has lots of buttery goodness. So like I did a baked brie. So there's puff pastry and brie and roasted pecans and dried cherries and rosemary. So combine that all together with a sip of this, and it was pretty spectacular.
it sounds like it's
Very-
fantastic.
I want that for dinner.
It paired very well.
Well, thank you, Terry. Our final wine, the 16 Merlot, Katie's going to talk to us about.
Hi, everybody. So while I completely agree with Terry in that Cabernet Franc is one of the big highlights for reds in the Finger Lakes, the Merlot, on the other hand, I think is one of the most underrated reds in the Finger Lakes. And in particular, this 2016 vintage, which came from Glacier Ridge Vineyard's fruit, is spectacular. 2016 was a very long, dry, some might even call it a drought, like for real drought year. But Glacier Ridge Vineyards came through beautifully and produced a deep, rich Merlot, which, while still being fairly young as a 2016, is drinking incredibly well. Loads of dark fruit characteristics to it, nice kind of dusty tannins, and really that kind of earthy smokiness that we've come to expect from reds from Glacier Ridge Vineyards. Having said all of that, it's a remarkable wine to be able to drink, and we paired it with grilled steaks, fresh grilled asparagus, and a mushroom risotto. Now, you all know how to cook steaks and asparagus the way you want to, but risotto is something that I struggle with, so have incorporated the help of a friend chef to bring to you a really fun, creamy mushroom risotto recipe. I hope you enjoy.
Well, thank you, Katie. That about does it for this tasting. You've tasted all 6 wines that are going to be included in your Spring Wine Club shipment. But of course, you need not only get 6 wines, you can make changes if you like. And Katie's going to talk to you about how to do that.
Hi again, everybody. So in the selections email, you're going to find a link where you can customize your cart, so your heart's desires. Well, within the boundaries of the 40 plus wines that we currently have available on our online store. You'll find the 6 wines that we've tasted here, along with our current releases, in addition to our new virtual tasting series wines. Heather and David have put together a remarkable virtual tasting series that the entire team is participating in, and we've been able to make these wines available to you. You can feel free to add them to your cart. You can substitute things that are currently in your selections, and it's going to be real easy. And of course, if you ever have any trouble, just contact me using the email that you'll find in your selections email, and we'll be happy to help you out with that.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the wines and be healthy. Cheers.
Oops.